Thank you very much, Joseph Olsen, for that very elaborate background report. And happily, we have guests who will be responding to the issues you raised and many more that will come up in the course of the conversation. Let's welcome Mr. Victor Aluko. He's Director of Publicity and Voter Education of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Mr. Aluko, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right. Also here with us is another regular guest, Engineer Yusuf Sani Yabagi. He's the National Chairman of the Inter-Party Advisory Council, IPAC. Yusuf Sani Yabagi, we're glad to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, Kingsley. Thank you for having me.
And from our Kano studio is Arms-Free Ajanaku, media and election expert. It's good to have you on Good Morning Nigeria. It's good to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
And also joining us via Zoom from Lagos is Cynthia Bamalu, Director of Program, Yaga Africa. Thank you for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria, Cynthia.
Thank you, and good morning, Nigeria.
Thank you very much. You're all welcome.
All right. I think we'll begin with Mr. Victor.
Yeah, that's what I thought, really.
Of the Independent National Electoral Commission. Now, let's also have some little background. The online registration as part of the continuous voter registration was an innovation intended to smoothen the process and make it more convenient for potential registrants to, as INEC said at the time, initiate their registration from the comfort of their homes or their offices without having to locate any INEC office or any spot where registration was going on. But here we are, some 7 million Nigerians are saying that yes, they took part in that. There were about 10 million who took part in it. And suddenly things have gone wrong. What happened?
Thank you so much. Firstly, let me state that the Commission will never do anything to prevent any eligible Nigerian from having their names on the voters' register. The electoral process basically belongs to voters. If there are no voters, we cannot have any electoral process. If there are no voters, we can't have elections, and INEC will not exist. So the idea that maybe we'll deliberately denied whopping 7 million Nigerians from completing registration, from becoming voters, is not really true. We all can take our minds back to the end of June 28, 2021, when we actually started the whole process. When we told Nigerians that we were initiating pre-registration online. And we also let Nigerians know that you could walk in to our offices and do your registration physically. The idea of pre-registration online was to allow those who are busy, young people in offices, to initiate that process. But then when you initiate the process, you must go physically to our office and our centers to complete the process. Because there's no way we will be able to take your fingerprints online. All those things must be finished physically. Now, the problem we had was that some Nigerians seemed not to understand the whole procedure. I had someone, a young person in her 20s, who initiated that online pre-registration online and sent it to me. When you do it, INEC will send you a slip online too, saying these are your particulars. And she sent it to me, jubilating that I've registered. I said, actually, she's my daughter. She was registering for the first time. She lives in Lagos. And I told her, daughter, you've not finished. You must now go to our office and complete the procedure. No. I said, you must. That's the procedure. And she actually went to our office, completed the procedure. And when she finished, she said, yes, I've finished now. I'm now a registered voter. I'm happy. I will vote. And I said, that's just the procedure. So there were many Nigerians who started that process and at a point did not go to our centers to physically complete the process. Out of the 7 million they're talking about, we found out that 4 million actually abandoned the process. Did not even complete the pre-registration process itself online. And 3 million completed that pre-registration process online and did not go to our offices to complete the process and finish it. So what we're trying to let people know is that all these things, you see, there are rights and responsibilities. Your right to register also carries a responsibility to understand the procedures and follow the procedures. Everything we do in life has a procedure. Even eating your food has a procedure. You won't put your food in the nose. You put your food in the mouth. So we need to, as a people, keep to regulations. When organizations are saying, this is the way we want you to do things, let's keep to the regulations. So all those 7 million were people who did not finish the process as at the time the CVR ended. And if they did not finish the process, there's no way we will forcefully put them in the list of those who completed the process. That means we'll be rigging the register. And of course, we can't do such thing. And that's just a simple fact. Those 7 million people did not complete the process. And only 3 million completed the process out of the 10 million. And those 3 million are on the list now. We are doing cleaning up. After that, we will finish the process. We'll print their cards, and they will have their cards. It pains us so much, but there was nothing we could do.
Totally. Let me just add up.
All right, go ahead, please. Yes.
Fortunately, you are the Director of Voter Education and Publicity. And this thing all requires, education and continuous one for that matter. And with great education and with a lot of, all these court cases and allegations and claims don't have been so much in the public domain, because a lot of people get to know that this is where you are and this is where these Nigerians are, and they should know that they should do this and do that. How much have you gone in that? I had wanted to keep this question to the end of this program, but all the same, with this now, we need to have that on.
Yeah, before we started the CVR at the end of June last year, and during the process, at least, let us give it to the Nigerian media. There was a lot of media publicity. Then, as a commission, we had a lot of engagement with stakeholders all over the country, local government areas, states, and even at national level. And we kept talking. You see, the thing is, sometimes there are people who, no matter what you say, will not listen. They will just do whatever they want to do.
Instead of taking you to court.
They'll just do whatever. And of course, the issue of taking us to court, the issue of this, they'll try to portray the commission as having deliberately denied people. We all saw how the whole thing went. We ran this program for 13 months. It was supposed to be 1 year. We extended for another 1 month. Just to ensure that people actually participate fully. We kept shouting on top of our voices the procedures. If you register online, it's just a pre-registration. You have to complete the process. Some people did. Now, out of 10 million, 3 million did. Those 3 million who passed the whole thing, we need to commend them. We need to commend those 3 million who passed. There are also Nigerians like those who did not finish the process. So if people willfully did not finish the process, it's painful. But we will not go to people's homes and go and force them to come to our centers and complete the process.
Victor, please explain this again to our viewers so that we know what numbers we are dealing with in terms of the contention over whether they've been denied the opportunity of complete registration. Is it the case that about 10 million Nigerians took the online route for registration?
Yes.
All right. So 10 million Nigerians took advantage of the online procedure, which was an innovation by INEC. Of the 10 million, there was supposed to be a two-stage process.
Yes.
You do pre-registration, and then you go for the physical capture. Yes. Now, you are talking about some numbers. There are 7 million of these persons.
Yes.
So what happened to 3 million? What happened to 4 million?
Out of the 7 million, what we're saying, that out of the 7 million that did not complete the process, what we found out was that 4 million out of them did not even finish the online pre-registration process itself.
They dropped out at the first stage.
They dropped out at the first stage. They either abandoned it, or we believe maybe they went and did physical registration. That's our belief. They either abandoned it, because once you initiate the process, it registers on our portal that you've initiated the process. If you don't complete the process, it's already registered on our portal. And so those 10 million people were all those who initiated the process. We found out that 4 million out of those people abandoned the process.
That's right. All right. So
they abandoned the process. They did not even complete it. Whether they now went and they did physical registration, they abandoned the process. Then 3 million completed the pre-registration online. They completed pre-registration online. The next step was that they needed to go to our offices and finish the process
by physical capture.
That is, we could get their prints, we could take their pictures, and all those biometrics. Those 3 million did not go to our offices to complete that process. That's out of 7 million now. 4 million did not even finish the pre-online registration itself when they started on their computers and their laptops. 3 million finished it, but did not go to our offices to complete the process entirely. So that's how we had 7 million out of 10 million that at the end of the day did not finish the registration process at all, even though they initiated it.
Okay, so the issue now is how you will accommodate those 3 million. Those 3 million, that is the issue.
Those 3 million now are part of those who validly completed the registration process. That is, we had those who walked in physically and completed. The 3 million who finished the pre-registration and completed they are going to offices to complete it are the people we are saying out of 10 million they finished the online registration.
There's no problem with those ones. We're talking about this the other 3 million
that passed. That passed. They are part of our valid list now. They are part of the valid list of those who we said 12 million Nigerians that completed CVR. 12 million Nigerians completed the entire CVR.
Sorry, Mr.
They can vote now.
No, I'm not quite clear about this. So that before we bring in the other guests, if you have your pen or your pencil, 10 million. Of this 10 million, 3 million completed the process.
Yes.
3 million validated. They are part of the voters register.
They are part of the voters list that we are cleaning up now.
That's fine. That's okay. No problem. Then you had 7 million. Of the 7 million, 4 million abandoned the exercise. Exercise minus 4 million, right? So you now have 3 million
that did not even come to our office at all.
Hang on.
The process.
4 million. If you abandon the pre-registration, then you have no claim. You have no right. But 3 million completed that first stage of pre-registration, but then neglected to come physically to your office
throughout the period.
So we will deal with the remedies for this 3 million now. I don't know whether you get it.
They're talking about their fate now.
Yes. We will leave him to respond to that later. Right. To say that actually those who may have a claim now, maybe on account of whatever reasons they want to give, but probably lack of information, lack of awareness, illness, or otherwise, we say only 3 million now are potentially on the fringe of being disenfranchised, assuming there's no formal remedy for them. We can now say there are 7 million. If 4 million abandon the exercise, they have gone. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay, so we'll come to you. But
really, before we leave him too, still, just excuse us a while. Of the 4 million, let me get down to that. It's a little bit of mathematics. You said they are the ones that abandoned it. And of course, they might have gone for physical, registration. Right?
That's those who abandoned the process.
Who abandoned the process.
We're just speculating now.
Yeah, it's speculating. But what I'm saying is, if they should have gone, take for instance, they've gone. And then they might have gotten registered. By the time they start the process, which of course it appears on your portal, and of course by the time they go for the physical registration, if at all they went for that, it also appears on your portal.
No, we are trying to speculate what made them to abandon the process. whether they decided not to come at all anymore, or whether they took the physical route to get registered.
If they
we're only just speculating what they did. So we cannot really hold on to that. It is good to say that that figure were people who abandoned the process itself. That's it. We were only analyzing that figure, 7 million.
Okay.
We were trying to break down that 7 million. The other thing is that 7 million persons did not, at the end of the day, complete the process as far as pre-online registration was concerned, as far as going physically to now complete what they initiated was concerned. Out of that 10 million, we were saying 7 million did not. 3 million did. 3 million finished the entire process, and
no issues with those ones.
So that's what we are saying.
But there's another
apart from that,
3 million.
Nigerians who had entirely physical process did not attempt any online thing at all.
Yes.
So that's what we are saying, that we have a figure now of a little above 12 million Nigerians who completed the CVR process.
Fantastic.
That's what we are working with.
Fantastic.
We are not just trying to explain the breakdown. And this issue of people who did not follow the procedures.
Victor, please, I'm sorry, I'm leaping in again. So that you say CVR, continuous voter registration, has turned up 12 million eligible voters. 12 million. But
who completed the registration?
No problem. They will not be eligible if they didn't complete the process. So we're saying they are eligible. But there are 3 million who are still on the sidelines. It's like you are in a stadium and then people are trying to open the gates for you. Maybe the gates have been closed. You see, it's a very interesting match that is going on. Probably I don't want to mention any club now or any team. So they have the stadium. They say, look, this election is going to be very interesting. See, PDP is playing against APC is playing against Labour is playing against all the other parties, XYZ. So they are at the stadium. They say, let us enter. 3 million. You already have 12 million who are inside from this exercise. So there are others before whose CVRs are valid. It is what you are going to do with these 3 million who are banging at your gates that will be the contentious point. But thanks a lot for your explanation, Victor. We still retain you while we bring in Chairman of IPAC. Chairman IPAC, what does this mean? I mean, I'm sure you have an understanding of it, but what does it just mean to you and, of course, to IPAC?
Well, it means that, one, INEC is really up to the expectation in terms of bringing innovations, making every effort that they can make in order to deliver on the mandate given to them by the Constitution, and to ensure that democracy is really made affordable and accessible by all that are qualified by the Electoral Act to participate in the registrations. But then there's the downside to it is the fact that in the innovations that INEC is bringing, to bear, there's a challenge. The challenge of the teething problem. Anything you are doing which is new, you always have these teething problems. Areas that you have to sometimes bend backward in order to accommodate the shortcomings of the system. Because this is the first time, the innovations that INEC has brought into the system is being put to practice, and it's been, backed by law, which is Electoral Act 2022. The issue, you see, is not just the question of the 3 million that the director is talking about. There is also the issue of cleaning up, which is going on. And last, was it about 2 days ago or so, there's about 50% of these 3 million you're talking about, are also not eligible because there are people that registered twice, and there are people that, for one reason or the other, did not meet the requirement of the law. So you perhaps may be talking about 1.5 million, if truly about 50% of the 3 million, are also not quite, in line with what the law says. So you see, as IPAC, we are worried. Sincerely, we are worried because if you have asked people to go, and with passion, commitment, like you said, wanting to be part of the process, and they went, and because the process is new, because this is not something that they are familiar with. We know the issues with electronic systems in Nigeria. The infrastructure is still being developed, isn't it? Even the issue of going to INEC offices, Nigerians express a lot of concern, difficulties in meeting the time, and some will have to stay in the queue. Some even try to see how they had to find a way to get themselves registered. So what am I saying? Section 10(4) of the Electoral Act says that INEC should publish the names of the qualified registered voters, but it says without prejudice to Section 9(6), which says that not later than 90 days to the election, INEC should publish, this register. So what am I saying? 90 days, the first election is going to be in February. So 90 days, when you count back, I think you're talking about something like October or something like that. So that is why some people are asking INEC for the reasons of we are doing this for the first time, and we are human beings, and this is democracy. Democracy is not something that you fixed yourself and said no room. Provided we are not violating any of the provisions of the Act, I think INEC, in their efforts and all the passion that they have shown, commitment they have shown, should also be magnanimous to see how do we, perhaps after announcing that, you try to vote, you try to register, but you didn't fulfill everything. Somebody may not, like he talks about his daughter, who thought that everything was okay. How many people have people in INEC that they will talk to, and they will tell them directly that, no, you have to do this. So the daughter had the opportunity of talking to her father, who is an insider, who could tell her, no, go and complete the process. How many Nigerians have that opportunity? It is just now that INEC is saying, no, it is not Uhuru yet. You haven't finished. So our appeal, and as IPAC, the managers of political parties, we're appealing to INEC because now they are using electronic systems, not manual. That you say, no, we don't have the time to do this. Let's create time. Let's see how we can capture as many people as possible into the process. That's the essence of democracy, is to allow Nigerians to participate in who becomes their next leader. So as far as IPAC is concerned, we're on the side of appealing that where necessary, let's make some amends, to see that as many people as possible, especially those who have indicated that they want to be part of it. But for the reasons of not having enough information at that point in time, if the information is coming out now, let's give them a chance.
It's all about education now. When we look at all these things we're talking about, it's voter education, and of course you're a politician. You need the votes, you need the voters. They need the votes, they need the voters, because without the voters, he said, they cannot be there. And without the voters too, you cannot be, get what you want. Exactly. So education is part of it. Yeah. I would really want you to look at it from the point of view of your effort too as political parties in trying to further educate Nigerians or your voters or your members in trying to see to it that this very exercise is done in this way. INEC is doing its bit. Yeah. What about the political parties?
No, political parties are doing their best too, because, for instance, INEC, part of the responsibility of INEC is to educate voters. That's what the Electoral Act says. Yeah. And also ourselves, the political parties. But we are not funded. INEC is funded. They are giving the money to do this. We are not giving any money to do anything. To do any of the things that we are talking about. But as political parties, because we have stepped forward that we want to be part of people that advance the cause of democracy, we are also participating as much as we can. I'm not in any way saying that INEC is not doing much, but there's more they can do because they have the money. If the money is not enough, let them talk to the government that what you are giving us for education is not enough. And that's why we are having a huge number of people that are ready to participate in the process. They can't participate because we can't reach them directly as they were supposed to. So the education is also part of INEC's responsibility. Yeah, and in the budget, it is there. Nobody is giving political parties any budget to do anything.
But we are saying that the political parties too, since they need the voters to vote for them.
We are doing quite a lot, believe me, because we need them. And like you said, INEC perhaps is just there to ensure that the process works according to the law and then to the advancement of democracy. But in our own case, more than INEC, we are the one that needs people to participate. And that's why I'm appealing now that INEC should take a second look at what has happened, that issue of education, issue of getting as many people as possible into this process is germane to survive, to the success of democracy in this country.
Okay, there's no problem. Let's move to Kano. And they hear from Arms Free, a journal, media and election expert. Arms Free, if you're with us, really, if you follow the conversation here, what do you make out of this?
Well, number one, I think that INEC, looking at the data that has been reeled out by the Director for Voter Education, does not seem to be, coming out all clear in terms of its own capacity constraints. And I say that advisedly because we went to some of these centers in Abuja. We also monitored some centers in Kano. And we found that the process was extremely challenging. There were instances where you had, crowds running into hundreds of citizens who wanted to register, and you have just a few data capture machine. In fact, part of the pressure we brought to bear on the process was, reaching out to INEC, making the point about the fact that there were many people who wanted to be part of the process who could not go through the process. In fact, people had to arrive at various registration centers as early as sometimes 6 a.m. in the morning. They have to take numbers. So the process was extremely, extremely challenging, even for those who went to the center. So I would not agree with the position that, a vast majority of the 10 million you're talking about abandoned the process. Many encountered challenges, and these challenges were not challenges of their own making. They were challenges that, had to do with the capacity of INEC itself. So I think INEC, needs to come out clean on, the realities of the capacity constraints that it has. That brings us to the issue of rethinking the way and manner in which we even do the whole registration process. We ordinarily should have a system which encompasses the birth record system, the death record system, such that INEC does not have to wait for every election cycle to have a deluge of citizens coming to the registration centers to register, and then this whole thing that you are not able to meet up with everybody. So some people should actually be coming through the other data points we have in the country. We have driver licenses, we have passport registration, we have different data points. As a country, we need to be able to come to a point where we're able to harvest all of this data, such that the people who will not be coming to the continuous voter registration will not be too many for INEC to handle. Because INEC is not admitting the fact that sometimes the crowd becomes too overwhelming, that even its own equipment and infrastructure cannot cope with the deluge. So I think this is a fundamental point. The second point I would like to make with respect to what the director was talking about is the fact that you have captured these people and you turn around again and you are deleting like 1.1 million ineligible or double registrants for the process. The question is, how did those ineligible registrants get into the register? And INEC also has to explain to the public what is the cost of this for our financial resources, because you should calculate the number of man hours it will take to register 1.1 million people that you turn around to delete. And the final point I would make before I will hang it there is that this is not really creating confidence for a lot of voters. People are already seeing the process as if this process is being rigged, because you cannot explain to Nigerians that you have already captured this number of people, then you turn around again and say you are deleting that number. And the way and manner it was communicated, it was not communicated in a way to inspire confidence, on the side of the voters. So we think these are issues that should be dealt with going forward. The registration process, has to, there has to be a rethinking, an entire rethinking of the registration process, such that you do not have too much a crowd besieging the registration centers when we are so close to an election.
Akul, thank you very much for the points that you have raised. Of course, you responded perfectly to the issues explained by Mr. Victor Aluko of INEC. Now, let's bring in Cynthia Mbamalo, who's been with us since the conversation started. She was joining us via Zoom. Cynthia, I'm sure you've listened attentively to the various points that they have raised, and you're a regular on Good Morning Nigeria. Again, we ask you the question. What do you make of all of this?
Thank you and good morning again. I guess it's I understand the sentiments, and for a lot of young Nigerians, there's been a lot of the uproar around, oh, why do we have this large number? But I think I'll make my intervention from three perspectives. And the first is the law, and the second is the process, the gaps within the process, and the third will be around opportunities as we build our electoral process. And from the point of law, while INEC had introduced the online pre-registration portal to make it a bit easier for people to start registration online and complete it physically, the law actually is clear. If you read sections 10 on continuous registration and sections 12 of the new Electoral Act on the qualification for registration, it is stated unequivocally that you must present yourself physically to the registration officer to be registered as a voter. Two sections make this emphasis. Section 10 talks about it, that every voter to be registered would need to be, we need to present himself or herself physically to the registration officer to be captured. Sections 12 on qualification, what makes you qualified as a voter, also clearly states that you need to physically present yourself to be registered. So from the point of law, you understand why for the Electoral Commission, they still need to be that physical capturing of biometric details of the voter. And that is because while the online process was introduced for you to start the process, the idea was if you begin online, when you get to the center, it reduces the time you spend, but it is required that you must conclude the process at the registration center before you can be properly captured as a voter. So that is the law. And on this point, you cannot fault INEC because INEC operates as an institution created by the Constitution within the law. And that was the requirement for why you need to go physically, regardless of the online process. So that is the law, and it is clear. Now, on the parts on the process, which is where I think there's a lot of issue. I think a lot of, for process, I'll look at it from the gaps. One, issues around communication. I think that there were a lot of voters who did not understand that the physical process, the online process is not the end of it, that you must go to the centers to conclude the process. And perhaps it's an issue around the quality and the extent of voter education that was going on, not just by INEC, but even by political parties, because this is where I'm glad we have the IPAC chairman present. Ordinarily, why INEC has the responsibility to conduct voter education, we actually need to begin to hold our political parties accountable on how well they invest in educating the populace, because they are the ones who benefit from the vote. If you have more registered voters, you're going to have parties who have more people to campaign for votes too. So there was also that we did not have as much engagement when it comes to communication. The media did their part. INEC, yes, they could have done a lot more, but the parties, some locations, we had some parties who were engaging, but it was not widespread. So imagine if we had a joint effort in educating the people on the need to conclude your registration at the registration centers, perhaps the number would have reduced. The other parts around the gap was also the process, and I'm glad Hamstri mentioned that there were issues around delays, and some locations had some insufficient IVET, the registration device. I know at some point the Electoral Commission had to increase the numbers of the IVET deployed to some locations, but you had voters who had complaints that they got to locations and the process was either tedious, the queue was long, and a lot of them had to go to work. So there's also the conversation around how do we make the process a bit more seamless so that voters will be inspired to get the registration. And when you talk about seamlessness, first is distance to where voters live. If you remember, the registration was happening at LGA offices, the local government offices of INEC across the state. That in itself was challenging. In some states, you have to travel long kilometers to get to the INEC offices. In some locations, there's also issues around insecurity. So there were several reasons that would have also been a sort of disincentive for people who had started the process online to conclude it. So the issues around availability of sufficient materials, registration devices in some locations, distance was a major challenge because some people complained that the offices were really far. So if you think about Abuja, for instance, AMAC, the registration, the INEC office for AMAC is in Kano. And you can imagine people live in Wuse or Area 1 and the other parts of the municipal area council. So this was a challenge. In some states in the north, you have to travel hours to get to the registration center. So that was also a challenge in the system. And I think as we move to the next conclude with this process, the next process, we need to start thinking more around how can there be better support to help INEC decentralize and bring registration process closer. Now, towards the end of the process, I know it was brought to the ward level, but that was much later. So you can imagine if it was a bit decentralized at the commencement. What that would mean is when it comes to the registration process, INEC must learn from this experience to better budget for the next process, because there's also issues around how do you provide sufficient budgeting that can cater to the needs of voters by ensuring that the voting process is registration process is brought closer to the people. So the process had challenges that may have deterred or rather made it a lot more difficult for people who had commenced online to conclude the process. But like I said, that is a challenge within the process. Now, what are the opportunities for me for the next conversation? And I believe that within these numbers that began online, there were those who had started the process of either applying for transfer or replacement of their voter card for those who lost it, because the online process had different levels of application. And I think that part of the consideration would have been that while the registration process was concluded, other services could have still been sustained, services like transfer and replacement, because what is required is 90 days to the elections by the law for the registration process to have been concluded. So there would have been some additional time, at least for other services to have been allowed for voters to conclude for those who were initiating transfer or replacement. And that is because those who have not concluded their transfer to the new locations where they live would also not be able to vote. And which is why some individuals, especially for those who had done, there were some individuals who had done multiple registration, not because they knew they were committing an offense. Some people thought they needed to register again rather than transfer their location or replace their voter registration. And those individuals whose names were cleaned up, what would happen is most of them, the data they would have written in the register will be their previous data, which will mean they would need to either travel back to their previous location to vote on elections day rather than the new place they would have wanted to. So sometimes some of these other services could have been extended while the biometric capture of registration that was suspended. There would have been an opportunity to extend that. And I think as we move to the general election, an opportunity now is for the level of the communication that is going out to voters. I believe that while there's a lot of issues around this, people do not understand properly why this happened, and it's important. There's a lot of responsibility on INEC to effectively communicate that, because this is creating that level of mistrust, and we all know that if people do not trust the system, they will not be inspired to participate. But this level now, there's a call on responsibility, not just for INEC but for political parties and the media and all. Why is that important? Because if we understand the law, we would know how to explain to people what happened in the process and to understand INEC's processes. If INEC succeeds, we all benefit from a credible process, which is why it's important we understand the issues. As we constructively engage on the issues, we should also be able to understand where the responsibilities lie. Because the truth is, the online registration did not substitute the physical registration. It was a complementary process to support the ease of registration. And provided you did not conclude the physical registration by law. The law requires that you should have presented yourself physically to conclude that registration. So while we have a lot of opportunities for INEC to improve on its processes to make it a bit more seamless, what happens is that the commission is still bound by law to act within the law. But now is the time for us to begin to educate people better. I think it's also a call to Nigerians. We need to read the new act. There's a lot of information.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about here, education and the rest of. But before we, move on to other guests, I would want you to really comment, make some remarks about some of the issues raised, especially at the beginning of this program, talking about the figures now, and then the credibility of the voter register as we approach 2023. These figures are really alarming, looking at the cleanup, that those that will be affected in the cleanup, and of course, looking at the 3 million that are hanging on the balance, and of course the 3 million that are just out there. I mean, 7 million that are put together that have been, affected by the voter registration. And look at all this number. One would not be out of place to say that it may affect the credibility of the voter register. What do you think?
Oh yes, it raises a lot of doubts. But you also remember that out of this 7, if you look at the final registration, we're going to be having over 90 million registered voters in these next elections. Because out of these numbers who did not conclude their registration online, we still have a large number who concluded their registration physically. Because this is just for those who started on the portal. It doesn't capture those who went straight to the registration center to get registered. And I know the Electoral Commission will give us the final details much later of the clean register. What am I saying? It creates doubt. No, there's nothing to question about that. It creates a lot of doubt because 7 million is a huge number. But perhaps the numbers we need to focus on is the 3-point-something million who had concluded and did not get the physical select, because about 4-point-something million did not finish the process. And it's important at this point for the Electoral Commission to begin that level of multi-stakeholders engagement, explaining why, but also giving a broader view on what the registration process is like. And I think there's also that need for the Electoral Commission. INEC has the details of every voter that registered, because you either use your sign up with your number or your email address. And then I think I'll connect it to the points Amsri mentioned around the listing of some ineligible voters. Perhaps it's also important for the Commission to send messages to people to explain this is why you've been deregistered, because that level of two-way communication between the registered voters and INEC would be important in reducing the doubt amongst the people. Whether we like it or not, the question has already been raised, because not everyone would understand what the law said and why INEC took the decision it made. So now is what you call damage control. INEC would have to review its communication strategy on how to engage stakeholders, beginning with the political parties, so that the parties would also understand the process and how to engage their voters, and then other stakeholders on what the process is. I do not know if there's an opportunity to reopen the process, to give a timeline for people to register again, but I know there's a lot on social media. There's been a lot of question around, can INEC open up this registration process again for voters who did not conclude the process, but that is within the purview of the Electoral Commission. But at this point, is a lot around damage control, because the doubt has been created. But I do not think it directly affects the credibility of the register. What affects the credibility of the register at this point is if INEC fails to clean up the register before the elections. So beyond the ABs, the automated biometric identification system that is going on to clean up the register, there's a lot more around ensuring the register in itself duly captures the total number of registered eligible voters in Nigeria. So things around voters who are either dead voters, voters who have rather underage voters who were registered on the register. So all that levels of cleaning up of the register to ensure that truly reflects the number of truly reflects the data of eligible voters is what is important, and that is where issues around credibility comes in. Credibility is around the quality of the register, the accuracy in the data captured of every voter, and the fact that it truly captures voters who are by law qualified to be registered as voter. That is what directly connects with the credibility of the register. Issues around the 7 million raises doubt on the process, but does not directly impact on the quality of the register of voters.
Well, Cynthia, thank you very much for your detailed explanation. We're going to have to let you go, but before we do it, I would like you to pitch in on a matter that also was simultaneous with the uproar over, at the time, 7 million persons who feared that they might be disenfranchised. And this has to do with the claim by CUPP, that is Coalition of United Political Parties, that the registration process had also been rigged, claiming that there was some intrusion of strange elements, and therefore you started having all kinds of foreign names, male names being mixed up with female photographs, and a mismatch, but all the allegation tending towards an attempt, in their opinion or in their claim, to rig the voters' register.
Well, I read that statement, and I think INEC had also replied with a statement. What is important here is when it comes to registration, there are specific requirements on identification. However, for those who observe registration processes, there are locations where you can't, some individuals who tell you, who look underage, will tell you they're not underage, for instance, and they get on the register. There are people who may not be Nigerians but look Nigerians, who made it through the borders, that got registered too. So there are different levels to this argument. However, what is important, I think the Electoral Commission was clear. INEC has the power to clean up the register because that is its responsibility. Now, issues around mismatch are issues that are resolved in the process of the cleaning up of the register. And some that may not necessarily be out of mischief. Sometimes there's a lot of pressure within the during the registration process that you may have some data captured inaccurately. What is required now, and I think for a lot of stakeholders, is to make that demand for the Electoral Commission to focus on cleaning up its register and sorting out issues that needs to be sorted out. The other point is on parts of claims, objections, and the display claims and objection. Once INEC I know there was a process that was on in August. There's a requirement that voters are supposed to also approach the commission if they are misnomers in the register and make complaints or raise objections to those issues that they have observed. Now, these are processes provided within the law. And I believe that what is important is that we all take advantage of the processes just so that we don't crowd foul after the process has been concluded. But at this point, there's a lot of work that needs to be done in cleaning up the register, in ensuring that issues raised are addressed. But I think what is important is that there's nothing wrong in stakeholders raising complaints, political parties, citizens in general. That it shows that we all care about the process. Nigeria is for everyone. We have a right to raise those complaints. And what is important is that when complaints are raised, that the Electoral Commission promptly responds to those complaints and provides clarification. If there's a need for a further meeting, invites the stakeholders in question and have that further meeting and provides better information with respect to those issues. So at this point, what we need now is constant communication from INEC, explaining issues raised, because there will be a lot more concerns raised. It doesn't mean people want to be mischievous sometimes. It just also means people care about the process and they need better clarification. But while that is important, we also need to act with caution. We don't want to heat up the polity unnecessarily. So people also need to verify their information before they even engage the media or make press statements. Because at some point, some issues raised becomes a bit more fake news and disinformation, and we need to reduce fake news and disinformation in this process, especially because it's important people are informed with the accurate information so that they can participate effectively in the electoral process.
Thank you so much, Cynthia Mbamalu. Did I get them right?
Yeah, Mbamalu.
Mbamalu, okay. Well, thank you so much, Cynthia. Cynthia is the Director of Program Yaga Africa. And then we learned that she has some other engagements right now. So I think we must thank you really for being part of this program this morning. It's our pleasure. Thank you so much. And of course, the program will continue in a moment. We'll now take a break, and then the final leg of it will continue just after the break. Why not stay with us?
If you want to become something, become a child again. Why be impatient? If you must worry, don't worry about winning. Why worry about germs? When you come home, bring tales and stories. Why bring in germs?
Shield your families from germs. When Dettol is a part of every household bucket, then you and your family can stay protected from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Everyday use of Dettol keeps my loved ones protected.
The Ministry of Police Affairs under my watch has been instrumental to strengthening the Nigerian police force to tackle challenges in the internal security architecture of the nation. To effectively achieve its mandate to protect lives and property within Nigeria, the Nigerian police have deployed operational intelligence and the ICT-based apparatus to tackle and stem the tide of crime and criminality. Some of these efforts include the maximization of the Force Intelligence Bureau, Intelligence Response Team, and Special Tactical Squads, through digitalization of emergency contacts via the NPF Rescue Me application for emergency response at the tap of a button.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Every day in our country, senior citizens are discriminated against, disparaged, and treated with disdain by those who ought to respect them. We are all complicit in the way we have treated the elderly members of our society as institutions, families, or members of a shared society. Every time senior citizens get offered less than they deserve for the work they do because they are old, poor, and desperate, we are failing them. Senior citizen loses a child, and wow, they must be responsible for their death. Every time a senior citizen gets labeled a witch, is called mad, and shooed out of the way because they have no memory of where they were headed and look unkempt, we are failing them. We say, abeg, it all old, make it do die, make everybody for rest, to ailing parents, uncles, and aunts. That's discrimination. That is neglect. When you see an old woman getting beat up and being accused of witchcraft, do not turn the other way. Stop and teach people that white hairs, wrinkles, and hunchbacks are no evidence of witchcraft. Aging comes with a memory decline. Sometimes it's not out of place to have elderly people lose their way, forget details of their lives, and how to properly take care of themselves. When they get to this stage, they deserve your empathy, not scorn. Our ailing fathers, mothers, aunties, and uncles are deserving of quality healthcare and peaceful transition. Make their last moments memorable. Senior citizens have paid their dues. They deserve your care. Stop all forms of discrimination against them today.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation into our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
As the 2023 elections draw near, remember, evil prospers when good men and women only wish for peace, but never take a step to make peaceful elections happen. Are you a father? Are you a mother? What are you saying to your children as elections approach? Have you warned them not to let themselves be used to cause violence? Have you explained to them what the consequences of electoral violence might be? Do your part to make peaceful elections happen. Talk to your children. Protect them from unscrupulous politicians who want to put them in harm's way, while their own children are comfortable at home, within and outside the country. Let's join hands to make 2023 elections peaceful. This message is from the National Orientation Agency, NOAA.
Welcome back. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. This morning we're talking about worrisome issues in continuous voter registration, the CVR. And then we have a guest, they're still around, one has left, anyway, that's talking about Cynthia Mbamalu. And then Victor Aluko is right with us, the Director, Voter Education and Publicity of the Independent National Electoral Commission, the, National Chairman, Interparty Advisory Council, Yusuf Sani Abagi is also with us. And we're having a Kano studio too. I'm free Janaku, a media and of course an election expert. Just now we have some 20 or so minutes left on this program, and then we really need to, fry some of these issues and some of these remarks made by some of us. Now let me move on and then see what reactions we would get from the INEC office here in this studio, talking about Victor Aluko. Issues of beavers, issues of inadequate facilities, issues of distance of, polling units, issues of your INEC office, issues of birth and death, and issues of credibility all boil onto this issue, into this topic. And they are all pointing towards you and towards your office, talking about the credibility of this voter register that will be out for 2023. How would you react to these issues, especially those mentioned by some of our conversants here?
Yeah, thank you. I think I need to explain the issue of 1.1 million persons that were being accused of delisting from the register. I think I need to take Nigerians back to about 5 months ago when the Commission gave an update on the persons who participated in CVR from June 28th last year to December last year, where we told Nigerians that 2.5 million Nigerians participated, 2 million Nigerians registered. And when we ran the data through automated biometric identification system, we found out that 1.4 million were valid, then 1.1 million persons were not valid because they engaged in double registration. And of course, once you clean up the register and you have the figure of invalid persons, you must remove that from your system. It's like virus. And we came out claiming to tell Nigerians 5 months ago. We gave Nigerians that data. There was no issue, no problem. About a month ago, we only gave an update on the issues of the register and referred to what we said earlier about some persons. Maybe they didn't remember or they didn't hear at that time, started saying that we delisted 1.1 million. Why should we delist 1.1 million? And we have been explaining and explaining. And we want to let Nigerians know that we only gave an update about the persons who participated, who registered, the last 6 months of last year in the CVR. We gave that update 5 months ago, and so we need to clarify that. So people should understand and not be accusing us now. I've been asking us, well, should we remove 1.1? That one is going to affect the credit register. No. It's part of the cleaning up process which we had before. And those who registered between January and end of July this year, we are still doing the cleaning up. We need to clean up the data we harvested from the field before we now add the whole thing to the existing register. Nigerians must know that we have an existing voters register that has 84 million Nigerians on it. All we will do is trying to update that register to give opportunity to people who didn't register before or people who are now of age. That's just what the law says we should do, update the register. And all this process is about updating the register. Those 84 million people are already existing voters. That was the register we used for 2019 general election. So the process of updating people need to understand, let us all be on the same page in terms of the procedures, in terms of the issues of participation. We understand that those who could not finish the process may not be happy, but there's a time for everything. We get the procedure, we get the timing and everything, and we need to move on.
Before we go down to those who couldn't complete the process, we're talking about updating the register now. And updating means looking at those who must have died and those who are really coming on board, attaining the age of 18 and above. And then, of course, those who did multiple registration, or rather, multiple registration, I must say. When we talk about equipment, it's inadequacy. We talk also about its, its inability. I don't know really, its inability to really capture or rather detect, all right, those who do multiple registration, if there are some as part of the cleanup exercise. Don't you have the machine don't have that capability? So there's so much so that, just like the portal you have, if I start registering today, I appear there on your portal, you see me. And so also if I go physically to go and register, of course, I appear on the portal. So can't that one be detected? It has to be part of the register. We can understand why those who died are out, those who are coming in.
The truth of the matter is that when anybody goes to register, okay, let's say during the CVR, people present themselves to our officials in our offices. We sort of get that data from the field. That data we get from the field is not immediately added to the existing voters register. Okay. That data we get from the field will not come back to the back end and clean up that data. It is through that cleanup process that we'll find out that some people, registered twice or that. And one good thing is that if you registered, let's say, in 2018, and you're already on the voters register, and then CVR, you want to register again, and we run ABIS. Our system will show us that you registered in Ibadan in 2018, and now you registered in Lagos in 2021 or 2022, and we flag you as a double registrant. What we did was to remove this new one and still leave you on the register. We did not remove the person completely. I think that was quite good on the part of INEC, even though the person committed a crime. Yeah. And another thing is, when we are registering on the field, the system we use will not detect anybody trying to violate the law. Will not detect double registration. It is when we go to the back end that we now run that new registration through the entire process. We match it up through the entire process that we find out that you did the Kano before, you're now in Abuja, you're doing it again. We are not able to do that at the point of registration.
While you are on the field,
we can't.
Okay. It is when you
go back to the back end and put everything in the system, my computer, that we're able to match the whole registration. That is the procedure.
Regardless, Mr. Thank you very much. Regardless, Cynthia raised a number of pertinent issues. Amongst them, she said, look, opportunities and the processes, what INEC needs to do in the next cycle of CBR. And she says, look, there are some persons who during this CBR were seeking either replacement or transfer, not new registrants. Earlier, IPAC chairman said, look, they are appealing. IPAC is appealing to INEC. I would like to ask the IPAC chairman, what are your specific prayers to INEC on this particular issue? Because part of the subtext you raised was to the effect that the law requires that the voter register be closed, literally, 90 days to the commencement of voting. Is that correct? So, what is your specific prayer?
Yeah, well, our specific prayer is that we realize the fact that INEC is under a lot of pressure. The good things they are doing may not come out, as anything having the bad thing, which is normal in any human situation, But even at that, we want to recognize the fact that it is an inalienable right of every individual citizen of this country that is qualified to be captured, in that register, so that he can exercise his franchise, when the time for election comes. And we also know that people are passionate, very passionate, because it is about what happens to you from now on, after the elections. Who is going to be your leader? And that is why we want INEC to look at it from the perspective of the fact that we need to deepen democracy. We need to encourage Nigerians to come forward. We need to, you see, now we are talking about the cleanup and all these things. There are thousands, even millions of PVCs that are not yet collected, all over the place. So you may not even really be talking about 84 billion like the director here has said, or even adding this. But what about those who have registered? They are alive. I'm not talking about those dead, but they have not gone to collect these PVCs. So INEC may do a lot, like you are saying, in terms of educating the people, so that people will now know the importance of going to collect these PVCs. It is not when it is some few days to election and then you now bombard INEC. So we are appealing to INEC, not only on the contest register issue, there is also the issue of the candidates. These are people that have stepped forward, have spent millions, they are campaigning all over the place, they have done billboards and what have you, and because parties could not complete the process of uploading to the portal, they are denied the opportunity to now run their campaigns, to participate in the elections. We don't think it is necessary to really differentiate people, because the process, nobody is talking about violating the law. INEC must work, within the purview of the law. Otherwise, all of us are in trouble. So we are on the same page with INEC as far as law is concerned. But this law itself has a lot of, allowances made because they recognize the fact that it's human beings that are going to participate in this process. And it says not later than 90 days. Control register supposed to be stopped, not less than 90 days. Uploading, changing of candidates, as far as parties are concerned, is also not less than 90 days. So we want INEC to please look at how they can accommodate some of these things.
Okay.
And like we have identified, perhaps going forward in your system, I'm sure the system can be designed such that the moment I go there and I try to register twice, it will tell me, no, you have registered before. You can't register again. I'm sure it can be done because today's age of technological advancement can help you so that we will not have a repeat of this scenario where somebody ignorantly may have done it and think that he's registered or he didn't know I remember the story that came out that if you have registered 2018 before and now you have to go and register, INEC has to come out very strongly to say that no, that is not the position. So we are appealing INEC for the candidates that are yet to really get on the register, for the registration people will register. INEC should please see how we can accommodate, because we have until January 12, 2023.
You're noting that. So
yes,
at least he has noted that. The prayer has been well said. I think he has noted that one. Let's move on to Kano for a while before out of this program. Ansfu Ajanaku, you've had this discussion going on, and of course it's been part of what you've been talking about. As a fan, or as a parting shot on this program from you, what do you want INEC to really do in order to see to it that this very voter register looking towards 2023 becomes more credible? Can you give us that in maybe 60 seconds?
Okay, thank you. I think we recognize the enormous pressure that INEC is under. We also recognize that they are trying to manage, on many fronts. But I also think that sometimes you also need to be clear about your own challenges so that, the entire populace can also support you in whatever ways they can. For example, on PVCs, civil societies are, also been, raising awareness, urging citizens to go pick up their PVCs. But if you go back to the issue of the voter register, and you read the statement of the INEC National Commissioner for Voter Education, he used two words. He said it is double registration and ineligible registration. So those are two different things. Double registration is one thing to think about. People who are not even eligible to be in the voter register in the first place is another thing to think about. And I think so INEC should set up in a way that you can prevent those from going to the register and you can also prevent having to do the double work of removing them from the delisting and all of that, while many people are actually waiting to be a part of the process who have not registered completely. So I think managing these things, and also importantly, managing communication. I think there are some things that you want to communicate that just a statement would not do. We need to, INEC needs to, bring all the stakeholders together to communicate it in a more effective way that it will prevent some of the kind of narratives we are seeing from partisan interest, trying to distort the process. I think if INEC is able to tie this together, improving the efficiency of the process and also revamping, its communication, I think it will all be on a good stead for the 2023 general elections.
Arms Free Janako, media and election expert. We appreciate your contribution to our conversation this morning. You joined us from our Kano Network Center. Thanks a lot, Arms Free. Do have a nice day. And here in our studios, a deep appreciation to Engineer Yusuf Sani Yabage. Always a delight having him on Good Morning Nigeria. He's the national chairman of the Interparty Advisory Council, IPAC. Thank you very much, Engineer Yabage.
Thank you, Tiffany.
And last but not the least, we'd like to appreciate Mr. Victor Aluko, Director, Publicity and Voter Education of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC. Earlier, we signed off Cynthia Mbamalu, Director of Programs of Yaga Africa. So that's it for our conversation segment. Let's take now some sports with good news about Toby Amuson.